Chris Langan. He has this thing called the CTMU, but there was this like video I watched on it, and they kind of like visualize everything so that the common layman can interpret what was being said. But when I started to hypothesize some of this stuff, some of it just didn't make sense. And maybe it's just because I don't have 190 IQ, but maybe it was a little bit tailored, if you will, or I don't know what the better term is. Not real, I guess. I'm gonna end this task. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just gonna end it. My computer's lagging, and I'm probably not gonna play that shit. All right. So this right here, right? So this is what I didn't get, and I don't know if he's right or if he's wrong. But let's
theory of relativity, for example, all the points are events.
Yep.
Okay, and that means that there's a time.
See, this is how I think that in school, this is how we should be visualizing black holes and gravity, because everybody gets this freaking swirly pool thing, and you think that it's this freaking swirly pool, and it's not a swirly pool. It's sort of that, but it's from all directions. So it's a 360 matrixical, like, giant pulley thing.
Time parameter involved. Okay, so when you take that glass and you move it from there to there, okay, you think that there's a point right there where you're going to move that glass. That's false. Okay, the point to which you are going to move that glass is actually in the future. When you pick up that glass, it's still in. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
See, that doesn't make sense, because the past is the future. And so what I was thinking is like, so like, my thing is like, so it's kind of like a tail, like almost like it's like Schrodinger's cat, but it's a little bit different, I think. So this past and future conjecture he's trying to explain, he's saying, hold on. Let's go back a little bit more and let's get like a little bit more sauce of what he's getting at, because I think I'm a little bit too early.
Quantization in order to make causality work.
Okay.
State of the medium around you, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to distinguish you.
Hold on.
Around us is changing. Superposition, and then those fields oftentimes make mistakes. And that's what we have to get out of doing, but we can't get out of doing it until we understand what reality is, what we are, and what the relationship between those two things is.
Do we really do much of anything at all, in the sense, do we have free will?
Free will.
Yes, we do. We have.
Do we have free will? I don't believe we have free will. I think that it seems like you have free will. Conscientiously, if you were to basically decipher between if you have free will or not, you can't even determine, there's no determined state of even being able to come to the same thesis based on the simulation. If you're a simulated character in a reality, you can't tell if you have free will, because your program has already been programmed. So you can feel artificial, like, and so what it is the fact that the sentience that you feel feels like free will compared to some sort of like counterintuitive AI system that you developed, which obviously runs on some sort of program, cannot be that right there is not free will, right? We know that, but that's our defined answer, free will. So free will is, I feel like we don't have free will, like, especially in the fact that we have like impulses, time and space has already happened, which I'm gonna get to where I'm what I like my little thing or whatever, but free will just doesn't make sense based on the fact that time has already happened. So
to have free will. Basically what you've got is you've got a bunch of quantum fields in superposition, and then
so he's talking about, this is spin, right? This is spin, and this is what Terrence Howard was getting at, which Terrence Howard was okay. He was getting at it sort of, but he wasn't taking in all accounts of the fact that they don't just move in a spin. Sometimes they move this way, sometimes they move around, which ultimately he is right. But I don't know how we can test if he's right or wrong, because it's basically some sort of, if you want to say, collapses of two different rational and irrational numbers. So you have a negative and a positive spin, but you also then, if you were numerically put that in mathematics, it would be a negative number and a positive number. But then it would be like, okay, so that means that it's in one state and it's another state. So that would also mean that it's in a quantum state, but there's also a chance that it's also another collapses of a parallel universe, creating a continuum in two, or a continuity in two different states of being, or like present, creating relativity. That's how relativity would become, because you have two states sort of interacting with each other through what would be quantum gravity, or the quantum state, reacting with each other, relatively seeing each other. It's kind of hard to explain, but you kind of go to, you see like how right here you see like there's spin, but there's like a bunch of them. It has like an RGB. It would be the combination between the space and time. But so I have like a thing of like there's got to be quantum time as well. Quantum time has to fluctuate differently as well. But
those fields consist of little fluctuations, little quantum fluctuations, right? Where is the fixed array? We were talking about a manifold, right?
so these are gluons, or
a bunch of zero
I think the lepton's the next one,
points.
or this is the graviton.
Okay, those two things are not
So these are gluons, I think. Pretty sure.
okay.
Okay.
Quantum field theory and that fixed array manifold where you can
Right.
parameterize
And so there's a point into which they interact with each other.
all of
So that's what you can kind of say is the
the
collapses.
causal functions
But there's also one where they don't.
using the manifold. That doesn't work. Okay, those two things don't fit together.
Well, often the conversation, especially these days, becomes this sort of shallow discussion of, well, this caused this, and I'm going to describe a totally deterministic system, and so as a result of this causing this, causing this, causing this, you don't have free will. And you're saying cause is actually more complicated than just cause.
That's correct. In other words, talking about free will in those terms is
What does that even mean? And why does he keep saying that's correct? Like, I feel like this guy's just agreeing just so he sounds smart. Hold on.
Cause. And cause is actually more complicated than just cause.
Because, so the reaction of something, an action happening, completion of a reaction. So because I spilled this water, there's fucking water on the ground. So he's saying that there's more to cause based on a time conjecture than regular causes, like cause and effect. That would, it's predeterministic. You can actually calculate this in quantum physics.
That's correct. In other words, talking about free will in those terms is otiose. Means nothing.
Yeah.
You can't get anywhere with it. Okay? Reality is actually generative. Okay? It's not a fixed manifold. Everything is being created all the time. Not just our states. Our states are being recreated, right? You know, I can cross my legs, I can uncross my leg. That's the changing state.
Yeah.
But the medium around us is changing. When I look at you, I'm seeing Michael Knowles. Okay? I'm seeing you sitting there. But that means that I'm seeing your boundary. I'm seeing what distinguishes you from the external environment, right? There's a medium around you. So I have to be regenerating that at the same time as I'm regenerating your state in my head, okay? I have to be what distinguishes you from the external environment, right? There's a medium around you. So I have to be regenerating that at the same time as I'm regenerating your state in my, so I'm seeing your boundary. I'm seeing Michael Knowles, okay? I'm seeing you sitting there. But that means that I'm seeing your boundary. I'm seeing what distinguishes you from the external environment, right?
What distinguishes you from your external environment is the fact that no. That makes no sense. Because the difference between the matter that we're seeing, he's making it seem as if Michael is in here made of some sort of god-like particle. And maybe he is, but he's made of light. So he's made of photons, electrons, nitrogen, oxygen. Like he's made of like atoms, like photons. So to distinguish, so there's light here, that's light, right? And then there's like hard matter that you can feel, right? And so the distinction between Michael and the things he's seeing around, there is no medium that's a differentiation. A medium is just a continuity change in pressure condition, right? So whether it's a wind, whether it's air, or whether it's space itself, right? It's just a vacuum. And so this doesn't really add up based on the fact that the distinction between this is the fault of a human interpretation, negating the fact that a human is also part of this matter matrix. Like this is matter, but I'm also matter. So how can we sit here and say that he's seeing a distinction between a medium and him when all of it's made of matter and energy, right? Because E equals MC squared. The thing he should be differentiating is things like that are outer dimensional, things like gravity, something we can't even measure a graviton, things like dark matter, that right there. But things that are like physical, like Michael compared to anything else, is still made of the same electrons as anything else is made atomically or subatomically.
There's a medium around you. So I have to be regenerating that at the same time as...
So he's right, like your brain is perceiving and generating reality, but the distinction between a person and matter is not much of a difference.
I'm regenerating
it's all the same physical construct.
When I say regenerating, the reason I'm doing that, I could also say I'm recognizing Michael Knowles, I'm recognizing your state right now, but I'm also recognizing the state of the medium around you, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to distinguish you from the medium and you wouldn't exist at all.
Right, right.
What is he saying? Space is curvature. Curvature equals mass. Mass equals curvature on space-time. You could still conceive of space without curvature. What is he saying?
I wouldn't be able to do now, but I'm also recognizing the state of the medium around you, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to distinguish you from the medium and you wouldn't exist at all.
Right, right. Well,
He wouldn't exist if his brain couldn't collapse a wave function of Michael's state compared to being in a regular medium, when any interaction with any particle in a quantum state collapses a wave function anyways. He's basically saying, if you didn't exist, I wouldn't see you. Duh.
Your state right now, but I'm also recognizing the state of the medium around you, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to distinguish you from the medium and you wouldn't exist at all.
right, right. Well, it's sort of like a little baby, right? Has trouble recognizing the limits of things and recognizing what some individual object might be from, you know, the glass on the table. They have trouble distinguishing those things.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Okay, the baby has to learn to distinguish those boundaries. And it has to receive the right visual cues at the right age so that it can actually learn how to do that.
Yeah. So now we're at metacausation. So what does metacausation have?
Causation works from past to future, okay? Metacausation works from past to future and from
This is kind of sort of my theory that I'm thinking about.
future to past in a closed loop. It's called a conspansive cycle. So that's basically what we have to do to quantization in order to make causality work. And of course, when I say causality, I mean metacausation, okay?
So how does,
Because ordinary past to future causality, parameterized by a fixed array, that doesn't work.
so I get past to future. This seems pretty simple. I pick up the glass of water, I put it over here, and now I remember 2 seconds ago that water was over here and then I caused it to go over there.
Right.
So how do you cause something to go from the future to the past?
Can't go
You can't do that because that's a conjecture.
anywhere unless there's some place for it to go.
Yeah.
In the universe, everything changes with time. You're actually, you know, in the theory of relativity, for example, all the points are events.
Yep.
Okay, and that means that there's a time parameter involved. Okay, so when you take that glass and you move it from there to there, okay, you think that there's a point right there where you're going to move that glass. That's false. Okay, the point to which you are going to move that glass is actually in the future. When you pick up that glass, it's still in, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, okay, that makes sense. Getting back to
That doesn't make sense. The point in which he's moving the glass has already happened deterministically, but the past is also what has been determined. So the state in which he moved it, the causality has always happened. He's saying that the future, he's saying that this glass moves from here to here, but it was always here. No, it was always here, but it's still here. This, because that negates the fact that being when it was here, that it was here. It completely destroys that because this was here. So this makes no sense. This makes no sense.
Parameter involved. Okay, so when you take that glass and you move it from there to there, okay, you think that there's a point right there where you're going to move that glass. That's false.
He thinks there's a point where I think he may have misspoken. This point and this point are the same point. This, because this and this are also the same point. How is he going to go from here to here and then say that this here was here instead of with completely disregarding the fact that here was also here? So the present is the future, but the future is also the present.
Okay, the point to which you are going to move that glass is actually in.
So this right here kind of gets into my quantum thesis of the fact that if you have a state of matter or a particle that's moving in a quantum state, and it also has a superposition of being a negative speed and a positive speed, but it's also it can be it has two different states, right? It has 50% chance of whatever state, and then the collapse is once it forms superposition. I think that the connotative dissonance between the negative and positive spin relate to an actual parallel collapses of a different universe happening simultaneously at the same time, and so it could either be there, and this is, you know, I can't prove this, but it could either be that it's two different universes or it's 7 billion, or how many people on Earth are universes, right? Like that's how many relative, or how many people exist in the universe, right? So it's like there's either it's possibly, you know, an infinite amount of universes, or there is a universe and then an anti-universe. And so like this conjecture between past and future, it's almost like a two pieces of paper, where it's like if you point between that two pieces of paper, there's like that point where they complete each other, and they come to this sort of like poke through or whatever. And that also ties to my thesis of about the state of you know, matter or energy and mass moving faster than the speed of light. I think that it's one of those things where it pokes through the fabric of space and time. I don't think that it completely explodes, because I think that it does expand to, you know, a size that, you know, magnitude that's almost inconceivable. But I also think that what it does is it sort of destroys the mathematical construct of what it is to be third dimensional, because you have to realize that the mass is actually going through stuff third dimensionally, but the light and the photon is conceiving the perception of matter fourth dimensionally, right? Because mass, right, or a photon is massless, right? So it's clearly outer dimensional. And so mathematically, I believe that the differentiation between the speed of light and the speed and the conjecture of a tachyon, which would be going faster than the speed of light, which would have to be going backwards in time, which is obviously a hypothesis because you can't really prove that. The math is that it goes like this. It goes like this. It goes here. It goes faster than the speed of light, and then once it reaches this point, right? You see this little tip here. It ends up invertedly going backwards, but it's not that it goes backwards like in this long of a curve. It goes straight and it goes completely back the same exact way. But it also, in that same instance, destroys the very universe that it was in, because the it basically moves through it like a piece of paper. So like I would take a piece of paper, I don't know, just regular piece of paper, and I poke a hole through it. That's what it's doing to the entire universe of it. So this differentiation between states that he's trying to hypothesize makes no sense, based on the fact that through quantum time, which is kind of what I'm thinking about, the quantum time says that, well, no, once this entity invariable collapses the wave function of the causality of this state and this state are the exact same state, or collapse at the exact same time, which is time, which is really a construct or concept, which would be the present. And so this right here, which you're deterministically saying is the future, isn't actually the future. The future is preconceived. And so what I'm trying to get at is, so when I'm talking about like this is kind of how I got like to the whole point, right? Was the Bruno Mars thing, where like Bruno Mars, he pops in and out of existence and he comes back. So I was thinking, right, if the future, so from through his thing, that's his thing, whatever. But through mine, it's like, the reason Schrodinger's cat makes sense is because that also means that I'm dead. And so that means that, and this is why, like, when I was younger, I was always worried about dying and stuff, like, but now it's like, I don't even care, because at this point, I'm dead. And what I mean is, I'm walking through the universe at a state where I'm already dead, a quantum state where I'm dead, but I'm also alive. So it doesn't really matter if like how I die or when I die. Surely, I don't want to go through that at some point. I'll have to go through it, but at least now, right? And so I think that the differentiation. So Schrodinger's cat, but don't think about a cat. Think about a person. You are also dead, but you're also alive at the same time through the universe. Through quantum time or quantum states, you exist and you don't exist, because there's also a point in the universe where you're still alive. And that's the point that's wicked, because how the fuck am I still alive and dead at the same time? So this means that we're living to die, but we're also dying to live. Crazy, right? And so this conjecture, I don't think is like, I think when people think of Schrodinger's cat, they think of a cat, but they don't think about themselves. They never think about themselves. They don't see themselves as a dead person walking. That's really what it is. And so that right there in the cycle that he was talking about, it makes that right there makes sense, because it would be basically like the invert rush, like the inversion of the universe collapsing back in on itself, and then starting from another singularity again. Now, is that the case? Who knows? I don't know. I think that Terrence Howard, even though they called Terrence Howard wicked and crazy, he did bring up a great point in the fact that the confines of the universe have to have a boundary based on the fact that when waves are colliding back in on each other, there has to be a point in which it rebounded from another state, from another whatever it is, it comes back. Because even I did like a little experiment where I was trying to do like the double slit experiment where I put the little thing together. It was like full shams, but I still tried it. And so the difference, so what I see is like, wait a minute, I pop this motherfucker in and the wave hits off the side of this fucker and comes back to the point in which I broke the water barrier. So this means that, because if it never came back, the expansion would have had a continuity infinitely, indeterministically, forever. And so this makes you think, right? And this is my like sort of a thing on like water and space and time and basically the fabric of space and time. I think that water is crazy because you have to really think about water. First of all, water is insane just based on the state of, like, I feel like water should have its own thing. Like, honestly, I think water should have its own thing, or liquid, because the way it works, the way it moves, it just doesn't make sense. Like, how does water move this way? Why did you ever sat there and thought about water? You ever sat there for a second and be like, out of everything else, this shit moves so weird. You can't like grab it. It's always in this state at some, like, not always in the state, but I'm saying like in this state, it's always in this state. I don't know how to explain it. Like a solid can change. Water, it stays water. And what I'm trying to get at is its molecular content is just the basis of hydrogen, but its fluidity moves in the fabric of space-time. So water's state doesn't really have a construct beyond its area or the medium that it commutes in. So, you know, the fine tuning of the universe creates water to have a specific movement and state. And I think the reason why you can sort of like speak to water and change its resonance is because the frequency tuning, it has a different state. So you can talk to water, like you can talk to water and it can hear you. It can, I know this sounds crazy. It can hear you. It can, because it has a memory. Water has memory. Our body we are made of water. Like that's even the crazy. We're made of water. Water has memory. Water can commute and it can create a diversification between two different states of matter. Solid state, and actually possibly three between the Bose-Einstein condensate. But like there's like multiple states of what water can be. And so when you look at water, not only is water just like weird, like it moves weird, it only works, it moves in a certain fluidity state where it's moving like in the integrations of how mobile it is to be in space. What I mean is this solid moves like a fucking solid. Gas, even though it's a gas, it gaseously moves like a gas, but it's reacted by a medium. So like wind can like maneuver it a lot of the times. Obviously, you know, all those other things can move with wind, right? Or through some different sort of medium state. But with water moves on its own and it can go through anything. It's like a squid. It can move, and its ability to move through space and time is odd to me. Not only this, the also weird fucking thing about water is you can't fucking make it. You can't make water. So if we're made of water and we're godlike, right? Or whatever we want to say, surely the only way to make another sentient being would be through water. So like if you want to make like a sentient AI, you'd have to make it like a water AI or something. But the state of water, so the state of water, right? And so like so like looking at like the basic fabric of space and time, right? The basic fabric, it moves like water, sort of, right? Like the gravitational waves, it moves like water, sort of. So if you have a whirlpool, right, which is supposed to be like your black hole, it has a point in which it ends. So inadvertently, if we were like to sort of measure what the entropy of water and the entropy of a black hole, we would deterministically come up to the conclusion that the end of it would be the end of time, right? So this right here, this conjecture he's talking about really doesn't make any sense based on all these factors.
In the future, when you pick up that glass, it's still in, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, okay, that makes sense. Getting back to...
Like, he's right, but he's not completely right in what he's saying. He's completely destroying all factors of the present. The present is the future. Do you know anybody who's went forward in time? No. We mathematically can prove it, but we don't know anybody who's gone forward in time. Actually, no, that's a lie. People have gone forward in time, but at very small, minuscule scales through time dilation, right? The time dilation paradox, right? But the fact that he's saying that the future is the state beyond which you started at makes no sense. Makes no sense. The future, the present is where you start at because that's your measurement. You've measured the present. Your past, but then also he negates the fact that the past is also the present. So how is the future also the future? How is the future the determined state compared to the fact that you have a present? The present is the determined state, not the future. The future is yet to be determined.
God, I guess we're always trying to get back to God. God is...
And if you can't go back in time, but if you were to go back in time, right, which means you would have to go faster than the speed of light, which means the universe that's in which someone was in would have to be destroyed, and that would also mean that they are in a different universe or a different timeline or whatever the fuck to do whatever. And that's the thesis of string theory and whatnot. But I mean, some of that stuff sounds a little bit weird sometimes when you really think about it. Like, in what other fucking universe? So that would mean that we all are each in our own different universe, basically. That's the only way string theory makes sense.
Outside of time and space.
Well, God distributes over time and space, and there's some left over.
But that would also mean that we couldn't die. And not that we couldn't die, but at some point we would have to respawn. Because the time in between which you start and which you die can't be determined by the state of which you are alive in through quantum time. So if I'm in a quantum state and I'm also dead and alive, there's nothing to collapse my wave function based on the fact if I'm in my own universe. So somebody goes back in time. They destroy their own Lincoln, right? Or they shoot their own Lincoln, or they shoot their own, or you know what I'm saying? They shoot their own JFK. The differentiation between those two people are probabilistically and inadvertently not the same. And if they're not the same, then that means string theory has a little bit of holes in it.
Time and space is static. It's a display.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're a little homunculus inside a computer display, like the Matrix, for example, okay?
Right, so this is the point in time where we're at.
God not only distributes over that, but there's a whole other domain where God exists. And that's the processing domain. That's the non-terminal domain in the CTMU. We're in the terminal domain, right? And most physicists, when they try to reason about the terminal domain, they reason under physical confinement. Okay, well, I can only look at physics, and I have to use what I know about physics, what I can observe about physics to explain everything else that I explain. So they have that kind of explanatory closure going right there.
I'm not going to ask you if I'm going to go to heaven or hell, but will I go to either heaven or hell?
You will persist after you die. Where you go depends on who Michael Knowles really is. You would know that better than anyone.
Yeah,
No. It doesn't matter who he is. It matters what the physics says, what the state of matter says, not his opinion or what he is. Now, obviously, they're joking.
I hope I know that better than... But you're telling me I'm going somewhere.
Yes.
You're confident of that. I don't just evaporate. I don't just turn into oblivion.
Well, you can. If you displease God, that's exactly what's going to happen to you.
And so this is the differentiation between, so, you know, this guy's 200 IQ or whatever, but this is inadvertently biases between a religion and physics and science. So he's basically saying that God is the reason why you would persist or not persist. Now, hey, look, I'm a firm, I'm not gonna say a firm believer, but you know, I believe in a God, right? I don't believe in like the man-made like whatever God. I think that there's a big, you know, I think there's just like an entity that controls and generates and operates and destroys everything around us in some sort of orderly fashion or manner. I don't think that there's like some guy in the fucking sky, right? But I think that I think there may be some sort of energy, something is out there based on like experiences I've had. I mean, you guys know about the painting and stuff and the whole DMT thing where I was sleeping, and now that I went through that, I know that there's more than just like the regular like little confinement of space around you, right? So you know, I believe in a God. 100% I believe in a God. I don't believe like the man-made thing, right? And I think like Bibles and stuff, I think that's just human tutorial 101. We're just trying to like make you like, it's just a way to like keep a decent vigor about yourself and try to like, you know, make yourself a better person. That's all it is. It's just how to be a better human. That's all the Bible is. That's why you run into Christians, and Christians are pretty nice people. They're pretty chill people. But this innate bias is like, oh, God is the determination of whether or not you persist or not. That means that God would be an emotional, like, mean person. Like, that means that there's a point where God is mean. Why would God have an emotive state between some regular buoyant civilian who doesn't even know where they're at? Like, people don't even know where they're at. We don't even know where we're at. Why would God, like, I see God as a generative operating machine. Like, I don't see God as like this. I think people see God as like a being because they are a being, but that's the innate bias of what God is. Same thing with humans or aliens. Like, people think that aliens are the same being as them, and obviously that's what we would classify another living sentient being. But like, obviously that's what we do, because that's the bias of an alien, right? So an alien compared to God is two totally different things. But who knows? I mean, maybe an alien, or what we would want to consider an alien, is in a whole different state of mind or a state of matter, or like they're interdimensional or something. Like, you never know, right? And so God itself, though, I think that God is basically just something that creates everything, right? I mean, that's kind of what I think, right? Like, it just generates, it operates, and destroys. And because you ever sit there and think like, dude, this is life. Like, really sit there and think like, bro, this is life, bro. Like, this is the cartoon I got put in with like all this Matrix shit around me, like with fucking Ronaldo. Like, Ronaldo's a person. Fucking, it's like the disassociation thing where you're like, you know, like, shit, we got fucking Juice WRLD, and for some reason Juice WRLD is you know, he can stand up. You ever just think about shit like that? Like, what the fuck? Where am I? How am I here? Why is this a candy cane? What is a candy cane? Why do candy canes exist? Like, why is this the reality I got present forth in being something that exists in reality? You get what I mean? You ever think about stuff like that? And so this guy's like opinion is very religiously biased.
God is
So like, does he have 200 IQ? Because he clearly has a bias.
going to cut you off, and he's going to say, I can't see him anymore. He's going to turn away from you, and then you won't be able to reunite self.
So he says that God will turn his face from you if you don't look at him or something.
Well, you can. If you displease
Or
God,
it.
that's exactly what's going to happen to you.
Displease God. That means God has emotion. How does God have emotion? What do you mean God is emotional? Why would God get mad at me? What did I do?
God is going to cut you off, and he's going to say, I can't see him anymore.
So your light will go out, right? Because this is us, right? This is us, right? And this is how I see people. The biophoton or the biphoton. You do look at this. Look at this. Biphoton is a pair of photons that are entangled in a quantum state. Biophotons or biphotons are a key component of modern quantum optics in many applications, including quantum meteorology and quantum key distribution. Biphoton frequency comb, biphoton entanglement properties, entangled by biphoton generation in Mayen Geeth, or what's it say? Sheath. So look at this. What does this look like to you? Well, that looks like yin and yang, right? So what I'm thinking is, this is a hypothesis, okay? Sort of, this is a person, and this is the reality they're brought forth. And this is also a person, and this is the reality that they're brought forth. And at a certain point in between, the wave function gets collapsed through relativity, special relativity. And this is sort of a functioning operation that happens in all quantum states when you have the differentiation between outer dimensional beings that are created through photons. So it means that interdimensional beings would have to be real based on their determined state. And that would also mean that you could actually access them if you were to change the frequency in which your body resonated in, or your photon resonates in, your biophoton. Let's see. Here's them as well. Pretty cool stuff.
It's going to turn away from you, and then you won't be able to reunite self.
So you're saying God will turn away from you? Why would God turn away from me if he's all loving,
Salvation
all good?
Will be impossible for you, because salvation means that God has got to pull you back.
That also means that, let's say I turn away from God my whole life, and then as soon as I die, I'm like, you know what, God, I mess with you, bro. And then boom, I'm accepted.
Into himself.
Right.
Okay, but God doesn't want to see you anymore. He doesn't even know you exist. He knows your physical body is there, but he's not interested anymore because you hate him and you deny his
Also, why is he calling God a he? That's also another bias.
existence. You offend him, so he's not going to look at you, right? So now what happens? Well, okay, you're dead. You still want to live. There's something in you that still desperately wants to live, so it's still going to be there. What happens now? Well, you try to create your own world for yourself, but if you're a bad person and you're an evil person, what kind of world is that going to be? It's going to be an evil world, and that's what we call hell.
This is what John Milton says in the mouth of Satan. He says, the mind is its own place, and it can make a hell of heaven or heaven a hell.
Now you got it.
We're in heaven. I see. All right, let's see him. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it, babe. Look at the nigga right here. Look at the nigga right. I see.
We're in heaven.
We're in heaven. Time is it? 8:30. Okay, mad chill. Let's see. All right, let's finish the rest of this video and then we'll play some more rows. Let's see. This 200. This is the 200 IQ case. This guy's the smartest person in the world.
So the things that people see when they're on psychedelics, I usually write them off and I tell people, you know, you're just hallucinating. But you're saying maybe that's not all it is. They might be seeing something real.
Well, once again, what is reality?
I know for a fact what I saw is fucking real.
Is reality just stuff out there?
No.
Reality has a mental aspect, right? And once you admit that basically everything has a mental aspect.
So like some of his stuff, he actually is right. But then he puts in this bias where it's like, it's either an emotional bias or it's a religious bias. It's like, dude, that's why you can't be a scientist. You're putting in all this bias.
And of course, what's going on?
Like, obviously we can infer certain things, but like right here, it's just like, there's a lot of things where it's like, I mean, this right here, I can understand what you're saying. Like, this kind of makes
takes
sense.
on
Right?
a kind of reality. It's not the same as physical reality. It is nevertheless real.
Hold on.
Are angels and demons real?
Yes. Yes.
I think so too.
These angels and demons are real. I think so as well, yeah. I think I've seen an angel when I was sleeping. I think I've seen an angel while I was sleeping. Let's see. I think like when you're a baby as well, you can see angels. They're just music volume. They're literally just like, they just have eyeballs. They're like an eyeball that's floating in the air. That's literally all.
God is real, angels are real, demons are real. Is the devil real?
Oh, yes.
Is the devil real?
Yes. Well, it has to be.
Well, I mean, I think it probably is, right? No, I wouldn't know like who the fuck the devil is or what the devil is, but possibly real, right?
You know, we were talking about Michael Knowles being surrounded by the medium and, you know, you've got a boundary. Well, God has a boundary too. He's got a very tight boundary. He is perfect. He can't take anything resembling imperfection, right? He can't take it into himself because that would be a contradiction. Okay, so God needs an antithesis in order to be properly defined. What is that antithesis? Anti-God or Satan. So it definitely exists. Now, Satan isn't coherent because, you know, he basically hates existence. Nevertheless, he gains coherence through human beings, through secondary tellers, as they're called in the CTMU. In other words, Satan can nucleate power structures, for example, things like corporations and governments, where you've got people in there that can be acquired as resources, and there's a kind of skeleton, you know, a corporate organization, a governmental, you know, organization that's holding them together, holding them in place, that can be exploited by Satan.
So you're not describing Manichaeism. You're not saying there's God and then the opposite of God, and there's some maybe equivalence between the two. You're saying that God, obviously there is an antithesis. Christ has an antichrist, but that it's incoherent. And are you saying that he sort of that the devil sort of lacks substance, or that's why he needs the humans?
I'm saying the devil lacks coherence. Coherence is what brings everything into
Yeah, he can't like think, or he's not like actual in a physical state.
superposition, right, with itself. In other words, it allows something to, this is going to sound a little bit paradoxical, allows something to communicate non-locally with itself,
Okay.
right? All of its possible states are in superposition. They exist all at once.
I mean, he's right with that. I just don't know if the devil's actually real. Like, you can't really, can you really determine if the devil's real, right? Like, who can really identify that? If you can identify that, let me know. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.